Anything is possible. New freezer, it's a lot of them.
Mason, how you doing?
Hey, David, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Great
So
to be
glad
with
you could join us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
How's your week going so far? Wrapping up the summer.
Week has been good. We've been busy this summer. We're lucky in that sense, but yeah, never enough time in the week, but we're doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well. Wrapping up ice cream season, getting ready for the winter. Congrats, by the way, on the new Whole Foods nationwide launch with the new cookie product. It's
Oh,
awesome.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about it.
Awesome. Well, on a high level, guys, this is episode 14 with Soozy's Grain Free. Incredible brand and company. We've got Mason Sexton, who's the co-founder and CEO. Excited to have you on and really pumped to hear a little bit more about your journey and your story.
Yeah, psyched to be here.
Awesome. Well, definitely super casual. Maybe we can start just a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? And how did you end up in CPG and specifically in baked goods?
Yeah, so I'm from New York City originally, born and raised. Still here. It's been a tough go with the pandemic, but yeah, been in New York City most of my life. And I got started in this whole CPG journey really as a function of a personal need. I was diagnosed gluten intolerant about a decade ago, and that was at a time where gluten-free wasn't really a thing. I mean, it was starting to become one, but you tell people you were gluten-free, they thought, something was wrong with you, psychologically even at times, because nobody could really wrap their head around that as an intolerance or an allergy as much. And when you went out to market then, it was really Udi's, and that was it, if you wanted to get some bread or you wanted to substitute a gluten-free product. And so I met my co-founder, Susan, a few years later and was really frustrated with those options in the market. And I'd also personally evolved to eat not just gluten-free, but cleaner, for me. And what that meant was grain-free, more of that paleo style, nutrient-dense, lower carb, lower sugar. And the gluten-free options out there really didn't capture that. So when I met Susan, I knew she had an incredible skill in the kitchen to bake, and challenged her to come up with a recipe that wasn't just gluten-free, but that was also grain-free, nutrient-dense, paleo. And she came out with a batch of muffins that blew my mind, and I thought, okay, I want to buy these at Whole Foods. That was the goal, and
Yeah.
we just kept taking all the steps from there on out.
So that's awesome. And I think usually some of the biggest breakthrough brands come from really solving a problem or a personal need. So you've got one brand in the marketplace that is, not to knock them, but maybe just not a lot of options to choose from.
Totally.
And maybe, I don't know their marketing strategy and how they're kind of communicating with that next gen customer, but it seems like a great opportunity. When I was kind of looking into your backstory, it seems like, you had some experience in tech before. You were also in finance. You were an equity analyst. Can you talk a little bit about that transition from, because I think most people, food and beverage, yes, it's a sexy industry, but it's incredibly challenging. But I also feel like those skill sets from other backgrounds give you such a serious leg up. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the progression from the early days of your other career and how you made the shift into CPG.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I did start off in finance as an equity analyst, and one of the great things about that job, at least for me at the time, I was a generalist. I was on the buy side, early in my career, and I got to cover a lot of different sectors. And really, as an analyst, you're paid to learn. You're paid to learn quickly, and you're paid to come up with opinions and a thesis on certain industries and companies specifically. So I did it for about 5.5 years. It was a great experience, and really gave me a solid base just to understand, what a company looks like, how it's supposed to run, what a good balance sheet looks like, what a bad balance sheet looks like, et cetera. Went to business school here in the city, and during that time actually launched a tech startup during business school. At that time, I thought, well, maybe one day I'll be a private equity investor, so it'll be good to get some operating experience. And decided this was the best opportunity to do it during business school, and built an application that grew very quickly while we were in school. None of us really had any idea what we were really doing. It was the early days.
Was this, by the way, was this while you were at Haas, or was this a separate?
Yeah, so actually I went to Columbia Business School, but I did a semester at Haas. They have
Awesome.
a they
I
have
went to Haas, so
I know
we're there you go, man.
I saw that.
Together.
Yeah, love Berkeley and had a great time there. I was there about 8 months on in that area, and Columbia and Haas have a kind of reciprocal program where you can do a semester abroad, quote unquote. So yeah, that was during that time, very much so, and there was the early days of mobile, and I gained a lot of great learnings from that experience, especially in terms of customer acquisition and also just thinking about product in general. Whether you're building a tech product or a food CPG product, or really any product for that matter, you have to become really obsessive about the customer experience and specifically the customer problem. So to answer your question, how did all those things lead up to this? Over that whole period, whether I was in finance or whether I was doing a tech startup, your health becomes paramount, right? Especially as an entrepreneur, as I know like if you don't feel good every day, you're not going to be able to really climb the mountaintop.
Nope.
And a lot of people develop bad habits just normally in society, and a lot of those are eating related habits, and I certainly was one of them. I thought I ate a balanced diet and I ate a normal diet, but when I started getting migraines and feeling sluggish in areas, I didn't really understand why. And if you go to your normal doctor, they'll just give you pills. They'll give you different types of pills for indigestion, pills for headaches, whatever. And I started to really understand there was this relationship between what I ate and how I felt. And so even during those times in finance and in the tech startup, I was becoming much more focused on my both mental and physical well-being. And I just knew food had become a passion. I just knew at some point I wanted to be able to bring something to market that was a game changer and that could satisfy people's cravings, literally in some cases. And I was one of those people, and you made a great point with respect to Udi's, not to disparage them at all. I mean, they were there really first, Udi's and Glutino in a mass market way, and they did it. But when it came down to it for me as a consumer, you look at the ingredients, not that great. You look at the nutritionals, just okay. And then the taste wasn't really that inspiring either. And so I felt like we could do better. So it was kind of a long journey. And I see from those past experiences, I picked up a little something along the way. But it feels really good to be doing something that I'm squarely passionate about. And again, I know I'm solving this need for myself. My brother's a celiac. So he's eating 3 or 4 of our products every day, across the spectrum. So it feels really good to have this in the market.
It's awesome to hear because I just feel like a lot of entrepreneurs have identified that some of these multinationals and large companies that have been around for decades, and not to knock them, but just have marginally innovated over the last, X number of years. And so young upstarts who want to bring an equally better, if not significantly better product to market, really focus on ingredient-driven options, using technology to build brand awareness. It's just an exciting time. It sounds like you guys have obviously done that. So it's, kudos, and it's very, very cool.
Likewise for you as well.
So, okay. So you guys were in New York. Soozy bakes up these incredible muffins. What happens next? Are you still at Moonit, building apps for people, or how did you make that transition? That's a pretty big move. I went through a similar career transition. So how do you just decide, okay, boom, we're doing Soozy's?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, look, as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you're the same way. You're learning every day about just the world, right? I mean, obviously we both have passions in sort of food and better for you eating, but every day I'm always excited to learn about new industries and what's happening in the world. And I developed this passion for food and health and wellness on the side. And so actually it was just the opposite. When Susan had that first batch of muffins come out of the oven, I was still doing Moonit Labs, and in no way was I like, oh, this is a business, because I had already been doing a startup. I knew I had such an appreciation and respect for how hard it is and how much of a commitment it really takes,
Correct.
I have a lot of brilliant friends from, school and other places who have day jobs, and everyone has things on the side, pretty much. But, after a few years go by, they say, oh, this thing's great, but it's not really taking off. And I try to console them from the standpoint of, yeah, it's really hard unless you're all in, this idea of doing things, you can keep doing things on the side, and that's not going to be an issue, and all will be fine, is I think misguided. So
I couldn't agree with you more, by the way, because I feel like I meet so many people who just want to launch a CPG brand on the side.
yeah,
It's so challenging. I
yeah,
don't believe it's feasible.
I don't know.
And I'm the same, like, if you really want to build a brand or a company, you have to be 110% all in. It seems like
Yeah,
you could just launch a brand and toss it into a retailer, but
no,
not,
no.
not, not so.
We were just on a sales call, and they asked us, what are the hours of operation for the company? And I just sort of laughed. I was like, how do you want me to answer this? Every day?
Yeah.
You know, honestly. And that's kind of what it is. You know, of course, we try to take the time off here and there where we can. But for the most part, yeah, it just doesn't happen that way. And so to answer your question, you know, more succinctly, back then I didn't know or think we were going to build a company. I said, let's just take the next step, you know, and at that point, you know, Moonlit Labs was starting to come to an end. You know, it was basically a wind down at that point. We'd had a good run, but the market got very crowded for us. And I said, okay, well, who knows what's next? Let's see. And I was open to a lot of things. You know, it didn't necessarily have to be Soozy's, but I think like any entrepreneur, you're always trying to get as much proof of concept as you can. So it starts with friends and family, and then it goes beyond that, you know, sort of first concentric circle of your network. And then it goes to people in the industry. And everyone just sort of was really excited about it. I mean, your friends and family are not always the best, you know, arbiters of this. You have to kind of go outside. And, you know, Susan actually has a great story where she was working in finance at the time and was bringing in these products to her office, right? Because your parents and your siblings will say, oh, yeah, I loved it, right? But the proof is in, do they want it? Are they calling you? Are they harassing you, being like, no, I need my muffins or I need my donuts, what have you? And her whole office became like addicted to them. And it started to become a little bit too much of a burden for her because she liked to bake, but it's one thing baking, you know, a dozen or 2 dozen. It's another thing baking like 100, right? I mean, that becomes a much more difficult operation. So we just kept taking those steps, you know, as you know, the journey is 1,000 steps more or more. And it's just, you just keep taking each step. And I think the key was we talked to someone who had spent a long career in food CPG and who just really liked the product and thought that what we were coming up with was something that was innovative, you know, high integrity, high authenticity product. And we said, okay, if this person feels that way, that's probably a good sign. And then it was finding a co-packer, which is always a hard, you know, piece of the puzzle for us, for anyone. But we were lucky and found a great one. And from there, it's kind of been off to the races ever since.
And was it always frozen? It was frozen, right? You guys did frozen initially?
It was. And that, you know, for me, because I didn't come from this background, I was like, really, a frozen muffin? Okay. Because obviously, like most people, I would think you buy muffins in the bakery or, you know, they're shelf stable. But I also knew, because of how I was eating, that you're not going to get a really nutrient-dense, healthy product in a baked good that's shelf stable. There are some exceptions. They tend to be, and we just launched our first shelf-stable cookie, which, you know, flies in the face of that. But one, that was a very difficult project because most things that are shelf-stable that actually are healthy tend to be like chips and crackers and cookies that are harder. To do anything that's like a soft baked good is going to be very difficult to have the shelf life you would need in store. So we, you know, one of our uncompromising philosophies obviously are the ingredients. You know, it has to taste good, but if it doesn't have what we believe are the right ingredients, the clean, you know, nutrient dense ingredients, we're not going to put it in. And it just turns out to have that kind of an ingredient deck on a muffin or a donut, it needs to be frozen. So we learned that pretty quickly. The good news is with frozen, you get about a year shelf life. So that actually does, you know, people sometimes look at frozen as a negative or a positive. It's both. You know,
dude, you're preaching to the choir. I actually think, dude, frozen is the future. It's where everything is headed.
It's where
maintaining those nutrients and underlooked, underappreciated. Frozen supply chains are in their infancy. Sorry, I get excited about it. Keep going.
No, by all means, you're right. And actually, if we're being honest, like look at a lot of the real innovation in the supermarket over the last few years. I see it mostly in frozen, like the more interesting concepts. And you just have more latitude, you know, you have more flexibility in the product and what you can do while adhering to, you know, your principles, right? And so I think we all see kind of where the market has been going, which is great overall, of people paying attention to what's in the food. You know, when it comes to things that are mass produced, you have to really pay close attention. And, you know, there's so many games that people play. It's very difficult. You know, I feel for the general public, the people who aren't really into this, like people like you or me, because there's just so much confusion out there about, is this okay, is this not okay, and what's right for me. But frozen is the one area I agree with you. I think I know it's growing, and we're happy to be there as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So, you guys you have the muffins, but did you launch with donuts and a number of other SKUs, or was it just the muffins to start?
Yeah, just the muffins to start, 3 SKUs. We brought donuts to the market about a year and a half after that. Similar,
Okay.
everything's the same philosophy. It's funny, sometimes people think the donuts are just a different shape of the muffin, but same batter. But we actually started from the ground up. Of course, there's a lot of overlap with the ingredient tech, but we really started from the ground up there, and to get the sort of the mouthfeel and the texture and the bite and the taste that we were looking for. So we had muffins and donuts for the first sort of 2-ish years, and then this summer is obviously, as you alluded to early on, a really big summer for us, going national with Whole Foods on a line of grain-free, keto-friendly bread and bagels, as well as shelf-stable cookies. So 6 SKUs nationally with Whole Foods. And just great to be partnering with them on these items, and to get them in we've been in Whole Foods with the muffins and donuts, but just in the Northeast, and we're slowly gaining more distribution on those items region by region. But to get national rollouts on those new items has been really something special for all of us.
And congrats on that. And then
Thank
I guess
you.
what I'd be curious about is with regards to e-com and frozen, how has that been for your business?
It's tricky. We've been taking a few different shots at it. There's no getting around just the baseline unit economics here, which
Frozen shipping, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with. It's just tough. So the way you handle it, obviously, is with the order size to make it worthwhile for everybody. So you're just talking about bigger order sizes, and it's something that we had experimented with early on in the company, but we did make a bigger push into retail. We were more retail focused. And then once COVID hit, we'd actually had e-com turned off for a few months prior to that. We realized, look, it's important to give our consumers the ability at least to order directly from us if they can't get the product, or if they were fearful about going in store, which we could all understand. So we have brought it on. It's going well. We're definitely making moves right now internally to make this a bigger part of our business. And again, just doing right by the consumer and finding the right balance of value, shipping, and all of these things that come into play with e-com. Like I said, it is a delicate balance, and when you're frozen, it's a little bit more challenging, or a lot more depending on your purview.
Totally. But look, I think we share a lot of the same pain with regards to frozen shipping and logistics. But obviously, launching shelf-stable products, I'm sure, kind of changes the opportunity there a little bit for you guys.
It does, yeah.
I guess I'd love to shift the conversation a little bit to, in that early day when you were looking to jump into CPG and launch a food product. I think a lot of people have the challenge of, back to what we talked about before, making the jump and going to do something so risky. I'm sure you had a million pieces of input and advice from colleagues, friends, people you used to work with. What did people initially say when you said, look, I'm going to launch this, muffin company? What was the initial feedback?
Yeah, it depends on who you ask, right? I mean, the people who really knew me were not surprised, because they knew I'd become, this had really become part of my life. I had developed over time a passion for food. And, I don't always like to call it like healthy eating. I mean, what does that really mean? And also, when you tell somebody, hey, I like to eat healthy, sometimes they look at you like, well, that doesn't sound like a very fun life. I mean, what are we talking, like, alfalfa sprouts all day long? So that was never the deal for me. I was always interested. Food had always, from the time I was young, had a big place in my life. I love to eat. Growing up in New York City, been lucky. You have a lot of options here, cuisines from all around the world. And food is emotional, right? I mean, life can be hard enough as is, and the few times a day we get to eat are opportunities to really enjoy and savor that experience. However, I did realize that if I wasn't fueling my body with the right things, that it would slow me down. I would become sluggish. I wouldn't feel as good. So I just never understood why we had to make this compromise. And traditionally in food CPG, as we were talking about a little bit before, you kind of did, I mean, growing up, the stuff that was fun that you wanted to eat generally was terrible for you,
Yeah.
High sugar, high carb, etc. and not a lot of good fat in that case, or, you know, enough protein, what have you. So, you know, I became really interested in that, in finding a way so that people did not have to compromise. So the people that knew me in my life knew that I was focused on this, and, you know, they knew I was tinkering with my own diet. Oh, what are you doing? You know, are you doing this paleo thing? What's the way you eat? So it wasn't really a big surprise to those people as much. And then there were some people who were like, "You're crazy," you know. And I think any entrepreneur has to feed off that a little bit, because
Yeah.
I always say that there's, you know, especially going to business school, right? You're around a lot of hyper analytical people, and that's great. And you do need to understand what you're doing, what you're getting involved in, what's the market like, and, you know, especially from a product standpoint, what is the product you're introducing to market and how does it fit? These are all things that are really important, you know. But at the same time, if you know too much, you'll never do anything. You'll just sit on the couch.
I mean,
Because
I don't know if, and I'm sure you knew as much as you could because I researched the industry as well. But I think there are certain things that come to light, like, wow, this is so capital intensive if you really want to build a CPG brand, or what unit economics look like in the first 2 to 3 years versus 5, 10, 15 with economies of scale. Or what just, you know, there's so many key learnings that you can't learn that from, you can, but like a lot of people also won't tell you the realities of how, the business. And there's like these high principles of like positive unit economics and, you know, what you need to look for in a CPG brand as a good investor versus how to operate one. But
totally.
Anyway.
And, you know, look, it does, you almost have to have a certain amount of just inner confidence that we'll figure it out, you know, because to your point, there are going to be a lot of problems that you'll feel like we can solve, right? And certainly from a product standpoint, you know, we can solve. But then there are these known unknowns where you say, well, at some point we may hit this, and how are we going to solve it? And you don't know on that day, you know? So there is this piece of, again, I don't know if it's confidence or delusion or whatever, right? I mean, choose your adjective. But there is this piece of it where you have to just say, we'll figure it out. You know, and another thing is, it's supposed to be tough, right? Because I always have to remind my team this, but if what we were doing already existed, it would be one thing, right? But we're trying to carve out a new niche, right? A new brand, a different way to eat, a no compromise way to indulge and enjoy. And if that already existed, I wouldn't be doing this. I just, you know, I'd be enjoying that product. I would just be on my couch eating their product. So it didn't. And that's hard. You know, that's because you're changing people's perception. You're changing, in some cases, people's habits. And you just have to be one. That's where I think just the passion comes in. It's like, I love these products, you know, and everyone on our team are so happy they exist. And whenever we think about, you know, the idea that they could not exist, it only fuels us more to continue pushing hard to do what we do. So yeah, it's a delicate balance though, for sure. Like I said, you need to know what you're getting into, but you're not going to be able to solve for every answer that's going to come, every problem that's going to come early.
And back to how you dealt, it seems like using some of the doubters and the, you know, naysayers as fuel to just kind of prove like, you know what, you're using analysis, like your respective, you know, life experience to judge whether or not this is a good idea. But, you know, I'm building my own case study. I believe in this and I'm going to make it happen. I guess tying deeper into that, when you look at what you guys are building with Soozy's, you know, obviously really focusing on a paleo diet, on grain-free products, gluten-free products, what's the longer term vision? Like what drives you, and what do you want to create, you know, a brand like Udi's or Glutino, or what's the long-term goal for you guys at the company?
Yeah, great question. I mean, for us, the positioning has always been a little different than just gluten-free or even grain-free or paleo. You know, this is the language that we all use to communicate things in market and in society, and it's efficient. You know, it works. And obviously, keto is a new trend that, you know, has picked up a lot of steam as well. Some of our products we say are keto friendly, some are, you know, less, etc. Pretty much everything is paleo, grain-free, gluten-free are sort of cornerstones. But we've never thought of ourselves as a gluten-free company. You know, like you said, Udi's really was like, here's everything you would normally buy in the baked goods aisle, gluten-free. Okay, fair enough. That's not how we position this. You know, for us, we wanted a company whereby the ingredients were the story, right? We're leading with the ingredient story all the time. And we think that's a timeless positioning. maybe paleo is the way people talk about the way we eat in 5 or 10 years. Maybe it's not. Maybe keto is, maybe it's not. So I think it's important for us that we always think about this on even a higher level, which is like, we want to give people real food made from as unprocessed ingredients as possible, always with an eye towards the nutritional profile. But above all else, we want them to taste great. We want people to crave these foods, to really enjoy them and have them be a positive addition to their day. Not something of like, oh, I have to eat my healthy version of this. No. That, we always thought internally, as soon as we get into that, we're done. That's not interesting to us.
Whenever someone has to sacrifice on your product, like, I agree. I'm shocked by how many brands have like 10,000 doors of distribution and the product does not taste good. Like, I understand that that's one of the most challenging. Most people forget one of the most important qualities is like, they have to enjoy eating your product.
Yeah.
And it's
incredible.
It's shocking.
I think it's a little bit of the first wave, second wave of better for you products, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm with you. And again, not to disparage any other brand, but ultimately, if the products don't taste good, I don't think it will last. You know, maybe it lasts 5 years. Maybe it's even a successful company for all intents and purposes. But at some point in time, someone's going to say, nah, I'm okay. I don't
Exactly.
need to go buy this, right? So, you know, getting to the heart of your question, when we think about this longer term, with that in mind, there's a lot of different ways we can go in the store, you know? We don't want to expand too much. You know, we have a lot of new lines now that we're excited about, that we're constantly making better, that we're constantly improving.
You have 5 lines, right? You have a muffin, donut, bread, bagels, and
cookies. Yeah.
Cookies. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So in that sense, we do have 5. Yeah. And there's a lot we can do within those 5 lines. So we don't feel the need to have to come into totally new categories. But one of the great things about our company, and it comes right from Susan, you know, myself and everyone involved, is we love what we're doing.
Hey, Mason, you still there? Mason, you still there? Shoot. Sorry, guys. Mason, I think you're a little frozen. Do you want to try logging back out and logging back in? Can you hear me? Shoot. Josh, can you see it? Am I frozen? Mason, if you want to try logging back out and then hopping back in, we can keep it going. All right. Adding you back. Sorry, guys. We're bringing back Mason. He's back.
I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
No, we're good. We're good. No worries at all.
Yeah, I don't know if the last part got cut off, but I was just saying we're lucky that we put a huge emphasis on innovation and R&D, so we're always working on it.
Awesome. So I guess continuing down that track, you know, when you look at the current state of entrepreneurship and a lot of capital flowing into the space, a lot of people trying to build better for you brands, you know, what advice would you have for people trying to build companies in this space, thinking about making a career transition or move? You know, what would you tell yourself, 4 or 5 years ago when you were first starting out?
Yeah, I think, one, you got to have a passion for it, because there's too many difficult days where if you're doing it because you think you're going to make money, or if you're doing it, you know, for some other reason by itself, it's not enough. You know, you have to really love what you're doing. You have to love the products. You have to love talking about them. People don't realize, you know, Susan and I and our team at large, you know, we've been in market now 2.5, almost 3 years, but we were working on this 2 years ahead of our launch. So this is 5 years every day, all we talk about. And I know you get it, you know, all we think about, all we talk about. And I couldn't imagine not loving it. You know, that would really, it would become such a burden, you know. We get fired up talking about it. We love that we can bring these products to our customer base. So, you know, this is who we are. You know, these aren't jobs really for us. This is actually kind of why we think we're here on this planet. You know, it's very mission driven. So everyone has to make their own decisions as to why they get involved in a startup. But I would tell that person, and obviously I would tell myself this if I went back 4 or 5 years ago, like, please make sure this is something you really love and want to immerse yourself in, day out. And other than that, just always surround yourself with great people who are, whether you're talking about bringing on people as employees or brand ambassadors or advocates, you're trying to build a coalition of the willing. And whatever you can do to bring the right people on early is hugely beneficial. And if by the same token, if you bring on the wrong people in any capacity, they're just going to suck the energy out of the business, you know? So it sounds trite, but it's really important. And this is across the whole spectrum of investors and advisors and you name it, you know, it's a key issue.
And then can you talk about, because I think this is something that doesn't get enough attention, is because we're the same way, you know, we've been working on this for almost 3.5, 4 years now. You come to market with an idea and a concept, and then you tweak and you iterate and you tweak and you iterate and you start in a certain X amount of stores, and then you slowly gain traction. You figure out what doesn't work. Can you talk about going from 50 to 100 stores to thousands and getting Whole Foods nationwide? What did you guys do that allowed you to get to that status? Because it's not, everyone just thinks, oh, put a product out, it's going to scale, take it national. What did you guys do? What did you figure out, those key learnings?
You have to have so much patience in this industry. And most entrepreneurs, me included, are very impatient people, right? We see something, we don't like it, we want to change it, let's do it, right? Let's do it today, let's do it tomorrow, right? The cycles, and you know this, especially in frozen, are long, you know? And it blows me away. We'll present our product to a retailer and they don't have anything like it on shelf. This is going to totally change their shelf for the better, in our opinion. And they say, yeah, you know, I don't think I'm going to make any changes this year. Let's talk in a year, 18 months. You're like, what? Like 18 months. And that means if you get it in 18 months, it won't get on shelf for another 6 months. So that's like someone saying, see you in 2 years.
Plus, they don't realize how challenging it is to manage a food and beverage business. You're waiting for those revenue increases to continue sustaining the business.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So exactly. So, and that stuff's deflating in the moment because you're like, no, we should be on shelf here. We will do well. And the customers in these stores are asking us all the time for product there. So patience is a virtue, but by the same token, you got to constantly push. And again, it goes back to what I was saying before about, you know, if this existed, it would be easier. It doesn't. And the first people you have to get on board are the gatekeepers or the buyers at retail, right? The more, and as you know, the more momentum you build up at retail, it gets easier in some cases, not always, but it can, where you say, hey, we opened up, and this is true in our case, we opened up in the Northeast region of Whole Foods with our muffins, and they were crushing it. People loved them. We were selling out regularly. So then you go to the next retailer, you say, hey, look at what we're doing at Whole Foods. I would think this would grab your attention. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. They say, yeah, that's nice, but you know, we want to see more. We want to see different parts of the country. So yeah, I mean, there's no silver bullet there. It's kind of the analogy of you're just pushing the boulder up the mountain, right? And you're just, it's like that constant pressure, which is tiring sometimes, of just push. And sometimes you get told, you know, go back the end of the line and see you next year, and other times, and look, there are some fantastic buyers out there, just like any industry, who are very innovative about the space, and a lot of people have taken chances on us that we are so appreciative of, and they're looking into the future saying, yeah, I'm looking at a world where Soozy's is a dominant brand in baked goods, you know, in these kinds of frozen.
Hey Mason, I think you froze again. Speaking of frozen. Shoot. Do you want to try logging in again? That one worked last time. I'll add you back in. Sorry, guys. Hey Mason, do you want to log out and then log back in? See if I can pull him back. Josh, will you check on it? Is he logged out? Yeah. Hey Mason, do you want to try logging out? Oh, here we go. He's back. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your patience. We're bringing him back. Alec can edit it, right? It says waiting for Susie's grain-free. Wild, I've never seen that happen before. Hey Layla, how you doing? What's up, Chloe? Thanks for hanging in there while we bring back Mason. We gotcha.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Dude, no worries at all. All good. All good.
I'm gonna send an Instagram support ticket here.
Yes. So okay. So back to what you were saying was building your data in a small region or retailer, and then presenting that to the masses and being patient.
Yeah.
Super crucial. Here's a question for you. What about transitioning from natural to conventional? Are you guys in a lot of conventional grocers right now?
We are in about 700 or 800 Krogers, which is a big part of the conventional footprint. We're also in Wegmans, HEB, Central Market. It's different. The dynamics are different. It depends on the retailer. You know, we actually do very well in some conventional stores for sure. But Kroger's been a great partner, and the product moves well there. It is by and large a different customer. You know, you're not going to move the same in a natural product like this in a Whole Foods as you would a Kroger. You know, it's a totally different ball game usually. But it depends on the item. So, you know, we're lucky from the standpoint of we have products that have a lot of mass appeal, right? We're talking about muffins and donuts and bread now, getting into more staple foods. So that casts a pretty wide net for us. Nice.
And in terms of getting on the buyer's radar, is there anything that's worked for you guys, especially in this environment? Ways that you're building brand awareness or digital strategies when trade shows are pretty much irrelevant?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's hard. Every buyer is different, you know, and some buyers respond more to kind of the updates and staying in touch and like to know what's going on with the brand, even if we're not on shelf with them. And then other buyers are more, you know, arm's length and, you know, don't call us, we'll call you. So it really depends. There's not one thing though that we found that's working in this environment better than anything else. It's very situational.
Totally. And I think the last question I'd ask is, you know, this business requires a ton of capital. How do you go about raising capital, thinking about investors versus bootstrapping? Any words of wisdom? Because at scale, you know, these companies are very expensive.
They are, yeah. Timing matters when it comes. Timing matters in everything. Timing matters when you raise money, right? And there'll always be companies that go out and raise money and you'll say, wow, they raised so much at a big valuation, but that may not mean anything for you, you know, and given where you're at. For us, we did bootstrap the first, you know, kind of 9 to 12 months of the business, so to speak. That was important because we felt like we wanted to show proof of concept, show that buyers at retailers were going to pick this up, show customers were buying it, the product was moving. And so you've established at least some proof of concept for potential investors to come in and say, okay, we see this is working. People are responding to this brand positively. You know, that's interesting. But yeah, you're right. It's a key part. And what a lot of, I think, first-time entrepreneurs don't get, me included, and people who are thinking about starting food businesses is that you say, well, what if I gave you, you know, 25,000 points of distribution tomorrow? You know, would you take it? Now, some would say, yeah, but you could make arguments that you shouldn't, right? Because it's not just...
Could kill your business.
Could kill your business, and you have to now support that and everything that goes along with that. And if you're not ready for that, it could absolutely kill the business. So I think being thoughtful about, you know, who you are as an entrepreneur, what the brand is you're trying to create, and then be strategic about then how you go about growing that into your vision is really important, right? Not every brand is going to be 10 million in sales or 100 million in sales, right? That's okay. But if you want to be a bigger brand, and you know, we always set out to be mass market, because our goal from the get-go was, how do we change this culture? How do we change a culture of eating and a culture of the way people think about these types of items, which are generally really unhealthy? So we did have to go raise money earlier than maybe some other brands did, because we wanted to go big, go national earlier, right? But I talked to friends who own brands, and they've been at it 10 years and have grown the brand really, you know, fast in their own way, haven't really taken much money. It's just been more gradual. So you're right, to go big, especially, and to scale, you do need capital. But it's, again, important to just ask the question, well, who do we want to be? You know what I mean? And it's easy some to say, well, I just want to be big, but okay, but big where, big how quickly, right? That matters a lot. And I think if you have that strategy down, you'll know when the right inflection points are to go out and say, okay, we've accomplished this with this amount of money, and now we need more to go accomplish that. And I think investors will always, you know, appreciate that and respond well to that.
I think that's great advice and spot on. I think really understanding, are you a venture-backed business? Are you a lifestyle brand?
Yeah.
Are you just building a company that is, you know, unit economic positive and slowly but surely, and you may take 10, 15 years, but then you own more equity. I guess last thing we'll end with is, you know, what can people expect to see from Soozy's in the future, and anything that, you know, you want to shout out or call out for anyone that's listening?
Yeah. I think I would expect more of the same. You know, like I said, we've had a great launch this summer with Whole Foods, with the bread, the bagels, and the cookies. So I would expect to see expansion on those lines, some new SKUs. Certainly we'll be upping our distribution this year, and are in talks with some new retailers about getting on shelf. So depending on how that goes, we'll have hopefully some positive announcements, you know, coming up. And then I would say beyond that, we're looking at some really interesting segments of the supermarket that we think are ripe for some innovation, where we could really add a lot of value in the store. So again, our kitchen is very active. We're constantly tinkering all the time. And I would expect, if not in mid 2021, either the back half of 2021 or into 2022, some new and exciting lines. So yeah, you know, that's really it for us. And again, appreciate you having us on. We're big fans of your brand and what you've created. So really, you know, honored to be here, and just, you know, really thrilled with all of our customers and our fans, the support we received. You know, we can't do this without them. You know, we make these products for them, you know, first and foremost. And so, you know, everyone on the team is very grateful for that.
Well, over here, we definitely admire and are really impressed by everything you guys have done. Congrats on the success. Guys, go pick up some Soozy's at your local Whole Foods. And Mason, thanks again for making the time on this busy Friday. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you, David. It was great. Love to be here. Have a great weekend.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Take care.